Hi everybody, it's Samantha here from the Dancing Soap Dish. I hope you're well. I am really excited to share with you my current Tweak of the Week project, which is these cute little rainbow soap bars that I have here. So as you can see, they're little rectangular bars of soap, and each of them has a little rainbow and a little cloud on them. If we look at them from the side, we can see the rainbow continues partway down the side of the soap bar, which I think is pretty cool because the rainbow and even the cloud is actually part of the soap. So that beautiful rainbow and cloud pattern, as you use the soap, will stay there until you use the very last sliver. This video is part of my Tweak of the Week series where I share with you everyday objects and craft supplies that with a little tweak can be used for melt and pour soap making. You can find all of the Tweak of the Week videos in a special playlist on this channel. I highly recommend checking it out. Some of the things you can do with melt and pour soap will blow your mind. Okay, so this is the mold that I used to make my soaps. It's not a huge mold. It's 10 by 15 centimeters, which is approximately 4 by 6 inches. And I also used this set of round cookie cutters. I picked these up from my local supermarket, but you can get very similar ones all over basically. Department stores, online, Amazon, you name it. Very easy to pick these up. So you want to make sure that the biggest cookie cutter you have fits inside your mold. And you want it to sit quite snug, just like this one. That does work best for the type of design that we're going to be doing. I also want to stress that metal cookie cutters are necessary for this project. The plastic ones just don't have the strength or the sharpness needed to cut through the melt and pour soap. Okay, so to start off, I'm going to weigh out 200 grams of white melt and pour soap base. 200 grams is just over 7 ounces. And divided by 4, it's not a huge amount. It's only 50 grams or maybe 1 3/4 of an ounce. So quite small bars, but this is not going to be the finished size of our bars. This is just the starting off point. So I've melted that in the microwave, giving that a good stir just to make sure that there's no lumps left in it. I have a blend of essential oils here, wild orange, plus some florals and some herbs. Just a beautiful calming blend. So the wild orange is why it's the color that it is. But once I stir it into my soap, it does change the color a little bit, but it's not going to matter once I add this blue pigment that I have here. So I have some blue soap coloring pigment. This stuff is very potent. You don't need a lot. That's just 1 drop in 200 grams of soap there, giving me that beautiful sky blue. I do think I'd like it just a little bit darker, so I'm probably going to add just another drop. Yeah, I'm just looking for a nice sky blue. I don't want to put too much in. That's why I'm just putting some on my spoon, and I might just stir that in just a little bit at a time, because I am conscious of it being too dark. It's always easier to add more coloring. It's not as easy to take coloring away. So I'm being very careful here, but I'm happy with that color now. Okay, I have some isopropyl alcohol on hand. I've just sprayed some into my soap just to get rid of some of the surface bubbles, and just a light spray of my mold, and I'm just going to pour that entire amount in, scrape out my jug, and that's a very easy first step. But what you're going to need to do is put that aside until it's set solid. Okay, so it's a little while later and my soap is set and firm to the touch, which is exactly what you need. I'm now going to get my cookie cutters ready. So like I showed you before, I've got this cookie cutter set. The cookie cutters are pretty close in size. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm only going to use every second one. So I'm going to pull out every second cookie cutter here and just put it back in its little round tin. And so these ones here are the cookie cutters I'm going to use. I have 6 cookie cutters, which is enough for 5 colors for my rainbow. Yes, I'm very aware there's more than 5 colours in a rainbow, but to do 7 just took too many cookie cutters. I couldn't even find enough cookie cutters to do the right amount of colours. So I'm going to adjust my colours so that 5 works. Okay, so I'm going to take the largest cookie cutter, I'm going to find the seam, and I'm going to line up the top seam with one of the top support bars of my silicone mold. It's just so that I can make sure that the seam goes in the same spot every single time. And I'm also going to put it somewhere, hopefully where the cut will be. So if there is any variations in the seams, it won't be super noticeable. I've also just quickly grabbed a ruler just to check that I've sort of got an approximately equal amount on either side here. I do want this circle to be as much in the center of the soap as it possibly can. I mean, hey, dead center would be ideal, but I'm eyeballing it and I'm just doing my best. Okay, so now you have to push down this cookie cutter into the soap. Now, the biggest cookie cutters are the hardest to do this with. That's why I've got myself sort of like a popsicle stick here that I'm using to help me press down, so I'm not like totally killing my fingers and my hands trying to press down on this metal cookie cutter. Like I said, the biggest ones are the hardest, so thankfully once you've done the biggest ones, the hard part is out of the way. If I turn it over, this is an important step, turn it over to make sure that it is pushed all the way down to the bottom, that you can see it through the bottom of the mold, and then you know that it's definitely sitting on the bottom. Then you take the next size cookie cutter, again lining up the seam in the same place, and I'm just eyeballing it this time and pushing this one down into the soap as well. Again, using my little wooden popsicle stick here just to save my fingers. There we go. Pushing that one in. And if I turn it over, I can see that actually I haven't got the bottom part sitting flush with the bottom of the mold. So there you go. That's why we check that, because that would cause problems. There we go. That is right there. So now that I've done that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out the outer ring. So the first ring that I put in, the larger ring, I'm actually going to very carefully just jimmy this up out of the soap. And I know it looks like it's hard to do, but it's just because I'm trying to do it carefully and slowly so that I don't ruin the soap or gouge the soap. But there we go. It pops out quite easily, especially because you've got the smaller ring to use as leverage. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this little ring of soap that I've just cut into my soap slab. And I found if you grab a skewer and just sort of make a cut in the ring, then you should very easily be able to, as long as it's cut all the way through. And I'm trying very hard not to ruin my outside line as well. There we go. Once you've done that, you should just be able to pull it very easily from around the cookie cutter. There we go. So I've got this strip of soap here, and I've got this ring cut out of my soap. Okay, now keep this strip here because we'll need it for later. Also, what I recommend is weigh it, and then you'll know how much soap you're going to need for the next step. Okay, so I've weighed that little strip of soap that I've taken out. It came to about 28 grams. So now I'm going to weigh out some more soap. I'm going to do a little bit more than 28 grams because I want some left over in this case. But I'm going to use half white base and half clear base. And the reason for that is it just gives me more vivid colours. I'm making a rainbow. I want beautiful bright colours. So I don't want a pastel rainbow, but I also don't want the colours to be too crazy. So you can see there's a mix of the clear and a mix of the white. But when I stir that together, I'll have like a milky white, and it will enable me to get brighter colours. So that's why I've chosen to do that. Okay, so I'm giving this a good stir to mix up the two soap bases. I have some red here. Again, this is a very potent red. I don't want too much, so I'm just going to add some to the edge of the skewer here and just... Okay, yeah, well, that's okay. That's pink, and I'm definitely looking for something a little bit darker than that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and add a drop. I feel like that's safe to do so now. Yeah, but you can see how potent that red is. I'm going to give that a good stir. There we go. So technically that is pink, but it's a dark pink, which is fine. Give that a good stir. And now I need to fill up this narrow little ring that I've created with this pink soap. Now you can do it from this little pouring cup, but the edge of the mold tends to get in the way. So you can use a pipette if you're good with a pipette. I'm not a huge fan of pipettes. I just don't have the patience for them. So what I decided to do was I actually got these little paper cups. These are like shot glass size paper cups for your wild barbecue party. But what I'm going to do is I can pinch them into like a really fine pouring spout, and I'm going to fill up my little ring that way. So I'm giving it a good spray down with my isopropyl alcohol. That is an important step. It will make sure that that soap flows right to the bottom of that ring, because it is a narrow space to get soap into. And I'll just tip this up to help me, but I tipped it up a bit too far, and while I was pouring it in one side, it was coming out the other side. But as you can see here, because I sprayed down my soap with the isopropyl alcohol, it's actually really easy to sort of clean up any spills. It just the soap just slides straight off that alcohol, which works well. Okay, now I want to fill up this ring with the pink soap all the way to the exact same level as the blue soap. And I'm a little bit short at this point, but I've got soap left, so that's fine. Trying the pipette again. Yeah, no, that's just driving me crazy. I'll pour this into the cup. My soap is starting to seize up a little bit, just because it's been a while since I heated it up. And I'm using quite a fast setting soap. So there we go. All right. But yeah, what I'm going to do is get as much of this soap as I can, and I need to fill up this ring all the way to the top. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. Just going to give this a bit of a clean up again, because that was sitting on the alcohol. Just very easily just scrape that off. Yeah, I just want to show you, it doesn't matter if you make a mess. It doesn't matter if you spill some drops or something like that. We'll be able to clean it up later. It's not a problem, so don't freak out if you're a little bit messy, just like me. Okay, so now I need to let that ring set up, which doesn't take long at all, because it's not a hell of a lot of soap. But there it is there. If I turn it over, you can see I have a beautiful pink ring in the middle of my blue soap. Okay, so the next step is to grab the next size cookie cutter. And again, I've put that in, I've just checked it out, and now I'm removing the outer ring yet again. I've swapped from a bamboo skewer to a metal skewer, because the bamboo skewer just wasn't holding up strength-wise. Metal skewer is best. I wanted some leftover pink soap because I didn't actually have any orange soap coloring, so I'm going to have to make my own orange just with red and yellow. So that's why I kept some back. So I'm just using a combination of the red and yellow, and maybe even a little bit of white here, just to get a nice orange, which I'm finally happy with. And again, I will put it into a little cup. You saw me spray down the gap with the isopropyl alcohol there. Very important step, can't stress that enough. And there you go, that was much easier. I just poured that one in. It's overflowed a little bit onto the red, but again, like I said, messiness is not a problem. It will all get cleaned up at the end. If you can clean it up as you go, yes, that saves some time, but if there's a little bit left over, not a problem. Okay, so here we go again. Once the orange is set, I'm going to add another ring for my next color, which is going to be yellow. So I thought so long and hard about how to make a rainbow, like a proper bow-shaped rainbow with melt and pour soap. I've been brainstorming this for over a year. And then one day I just had the thought, well, you know, a rainbow really is half a circle. So what if I just made some circles instead of trying to make a bow? And so that's where I sort of came up with this idea of making a bunch of colored concentric circles, and you know, doing it this way as well. The soap layers butted up against each other, just like you would have if you were doing, you know, a vertical layered rainbow soap. But in this case, they are circles, and if you cut them in half, they make a rainbow. So back to what's going on screen. I went to do my next color and I wasn't happy with where I placed my inner ring. I just felt like it wasn't in the center, and yeah, my ring would have been a bit lopsided. So I took it out and I repositioned it. But that does make things a little bit tricky because then you're going to end up with two cuts. So this is me repositioning it and then checking it. I'm much happier with that. All right, and then I'm still going to remove the outer ring here. Here we go. And I just had to be careful when I pulled out this bit of soap here to make sure that I got everything. I had a little bit of a sliver that was left over from the first cut. And it was a little bit sticky and stuck in there, so that's why I just had to sort of scrape it out because I didn't want any of that blue stuck to the next color of my rainbow. But yeah, I sorted that out. The next color is going to be green, and I have some beautiful green coloring here. Again, a nice deep sea green, very pretty, and I'm just going to pour that into the gap. I'm getting pretty good at this. Okay, and now we are ready for the final cutter. So I'm making very sure that I put this in the right space first time because I don't want to have to reposition this one and make a right mess. So I've popped that in. I've had a look. Perfect. Love it. Okay. So I'm going to jimmy out this one here. Again, there's sort of two cuts there from where I repositioned the last cutter. So just make sure that I got all of that soap out. And again, weighed that to make sure how much soap I need for the next layer. I'm just cleaning up here as well because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do my clouds. So I have these little polymer clay cutters here. One of them is a circle, and that's what I'm going to be using. So it's quite a small circle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to punch a bunch of overlapping circles into my soap in order to make a cloud shape. Okay, so I've punched a bunch of circles. I'm now going to use my skewer just to pop out all that soap. And then once I've done that, I should have this cute little cloud shape, which I do. I'm going to do one on each side of the circle. So I'll just do this one here. Here we go. I love this because all the clouds are different shapes and sizes. Okay, so I turned my soap mold around then because it's important to remember that this side, I'm actually going to have, I'm going to flip the soap. So I had to turn that around, otherwise my cloud would have been upside down. So make sure you follow that step. That's an important step. And then I also decided I wanted one of my clouds to maybe be disappearing off the edge of the soap. So what I did was I cut two little circles very close to the edge of the soap mold, and then a third one just for the edge of the cloud. And I popped all of that out. And then I also used my skewer to pull out that little gap that was in between the two circles. And that made it look like the cloud was sort of disappearing off the edge of the soap, just like that. So I have 4 little cloud shapes here. Again, if I collect all of this stuff that I popped out and weigh it, it will tell me how much white soap I need to fill up my clouds, which is what I'm going to do now. So you'll probably notice that I haven't centered any of the rainbow layers or the clouds. I just decided that that wasn't necessary. I mean, I centered the blue, and the blue is pretty much going to be a significant part of all of the soap bars. So I decided not to complicate things, and I haven't centered any of the rainbow colors or these little clouds here. All right, now I'm just measuring out some soap for my final color, which I've decided I wanted to be, so the colors that would be left would normally be, blue and purple. I decided to just mix them both together. Here's a bit of purple and a little bit of blue, and make a really dark indigo sort of color. And indigo is supposed to be part of the original 7-color rainbow as well. So there we go. So I've got an indigo color here that I'm going to make my last color of my rainbow. Here we go. I'm going to pour it in. Made a mess as per usual, but hey, we're used to that now. I'll just give it a bit of a clean up. Some of the white overflowed from the clouds as well, so yeah, that's fine. Like I said, making a mess is okay. We can fix it. So I'm just doing a little bit of tidying up here. There we go. Alrighty. Okay, so here it is here. It's mostly finished, but it is a bit of a hot mess. So we are going to have to do some tidying up. So I'm just going to pull out the very last cookie cutter here. And as I did this, I realized that I made a mistake. For the very last ring, you were supposed to pull out both cookie cutters so that the purple adhered to the blue that was in the center there. See how this, if I give it a bit of a shove, it wobbles because that blue circle in the center is not actually adhered to the purple ring because I had the cookie cutter in place. And that will be noticeable on the other side too. You'll see that line. But that's okay. I can fix that. That's not a problem. But ideally, for the very last color, you should remove both cookie cutters and just pour that last color in between, you know, the sky blue and whatever your second last color of the rainbow was. So that's something to remember there. So I'm using a scraper here just to scrape down the back of the soap, especially around the clouds because the clouds overflowed a little bit. So just removing any of the excess around the clouds and also making sure that my rainbow is the same height. So that's what it looks like from the back. That's pretty impressive. What do you think? I think it's looking pretty amazing. And what I'm going to do, again, this is only necessary if you made the mistake that I made. See how that wasn't attached to the purple? I'm actually just going to plonk that in there and I will fill up that little hole with some more heated up liquid blue soap. Okay, so the next step is I'm going to put a back on this. So I'm going to use all of the blue soap that I've punched out so far to make my clouds and my rainbow. I melted it very slowly. There was still a few little blobs left and I'm actually just stirring it just until those last little blobs melt. I didn't want to heat this up too hot because it is the second time that I'm heating it up and it is already colored and scented. So I just sprayed down my mold with my isopropyl alcohol and the first thing I'm going to do is just fill up that little center hole there and then I'm just going to pour the remaining soap over the back of the bar. So this just, well, it does two things. It just cleans, it makes a really nice ending to the soap, it cleans it up all nice and neat. You can't see the workings of the rainbow from the inside. And it's also going to make our soap bars a little bit bigger now. They were quite small before. Now we've got a bit of a chunkier bar, a bigger bar, and that'll be fine. Okay, so I left this overnight just to set up a little bit more. So it's quite firm now. And I'm going to pop it out and take a look. Look at this. Is this the best slab of soap you've ever seen? That's just freaking awesome. Look at that. That's just amazing. You can see the clouds at the bottom are upside down. They're supposed to be that way. I can see here there's a little smidge of blue here that must have been stuck to the bottom of the mold at some stage. But I think that's just sitting on the surface. I should be able to buff that off. I'm not sure how I missed that. But here we go. Now I have a ball-tipped stylus, which I'm just going to use to mark up my soap so I can cut it up into 4 bars. It was 10 centimeters by 15 centimeters, the mold, so I'm going to make 5 centimeter by 7.5 centimeter bars, which is about what, 2 by 3 inches. There you go, just cutting it with my soap cutter. Looks like I did pretty good positioning my my cookie cutters in the center of the mold because it's looking pretty good. There we go. Look at that. 4 gorgeous little rainbow soaps. Okay, so I weighed these bars again and their new weight was 2.5 ounce, which is just under 75 grams, so 73, 74 gram. Now I'm just going to give them a buff and also just soften those edges that have been cut. Look at that, freaking fantastic. Look at the sides, so beautiful. You can see there's a little bit of the clouds poking through the sides as well. Love it. Okay, so what are you waiting for, people? Go and get yourself some circular cookie cutters and make yourself some melt and pour rainbow soap bars. You'll be so happy you did. Look at these. They are just glorious. And, you know, not a hard technique once you know the secret. It was actually pretty simple. I really hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you love what I do. And until next time, guys, enjoy.